Yeah, let's dive in. And let's talk about the college football playoff. The field, of course, is now set in front of us. We do know that Oregon is your number 1 seed, Boise State, Georgia your number 2, Boise State the 3, Big 12 champion Arizona State is your 4. Your first round matchups, which begin next Friday. We will preview them, of course, next week on the show. We have number 5 Texas hosting ACC champion number 12 Clemson, number 6 Penn State hosting number 11 SMU, number 7 Notre Dame hosting number 10 Indiana, number 8 Ohio State hosting number 9 Tennessee. I will get out in front of this because if you go back to our college football preview show, we figured something out before the season that some of the smartest people in college football allegedly in analyzing college football are only figuring out this week that the automatic buys for the top 4 conference champions, and even more so the lack of reseeding in the college football playoff, the 12 team college football playoff.
I didn't add to mine. Yeah, the reseeding
is what is making this
weird,
bad, weird, wrong, whatever adjectives you want to use. But because this is the thing we talked about. We were talking about the format because this was all new and all brand new stuff, starting out this season. But we were like, every other sport, you reseed. Lowest team always plays the number 1 team. Like, why? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, unlike our hairlines, the NCAA will not be reseeding this year.
Hi-oh! And
hey, let's speak for yourself, son. Okay.
And the thing I said is like I cited the 2004 or whatever it was Orange Bowl when number 23 Florida State, by way of an ACC title game, and it was only coincidental that the ACC was the bad conference in that year, ended up in the Orange Bowl playing Penn State, getting boat race. The game wasn't close. And I always cite that year, and I didn't think that it was all going to come manifest itself 4 months later. That the automatic bids, the automatic buys, the lack of reseeding because of an unforeseen road, created by in part the portal, the field leveling a little bit, resumes, all of those other things we've talked about for the last 4 months has created a bracket that cool on the surface. We'll discuss that. But because of those things, the automatics and the not reseeding make some roads easier than others, make some roads harder than others. So let's we'll start at it. Sean, I'll go to you. We'll go in reverse order of the last segment. Looking at this, we will start with just kind of what you think on like the broad surface of it, what they got right and what they got wrong.
Well, obviously, I mean, for them, the lack of reseeding allows them to play around with matchups later, and maybe that's what they wanted is more control down the line, because I think even though you have some really, and everybody's angry about Oregon's path, I'm not as angry as everyone else. I mean, it's unfortunate they may have to beat Ohio State a second time. But I think they're better than Ohio State, and I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't. But yeah, I think obviously the things you pointed out are the big misses. The big hits are SMU's in and Alabama isn't. I'm very pleased that happened. I'm even fine with
Alabama.
Perfect. I think Clemson getting in was just a no-brainer at that point. My favorite thing has nothing to do with the committee. Miami blew it. So that's perfect. Man, because if they beat Syracuse, this thing's completely different.
Absolutely.
It's just, and I do enjoy the fact that, they set up some decent semifinal matchups if things play out right. The fact that it angers me to say the fact that Penn State has that path and the run and one of the, if not, I don't want to say the best run defense in the field, but that's one thing they're good at. So it sets up an interesting run defense versus Boise State. But the fact that it could be a Notre Dame Penn State situation in the semifinals, and I don't know who they're planning on having Oregon play for fun. I guess Texas. I don't know. There's the 4 seeds are wrong. I think both things need to happen. I think reseeding, yes, 100%. And I think, it's okay to have the auto bids to the 12, but you got to let the cream be at the top, and you got to it makes a bad bracket when you let some of the smaller and the automatic bids as a 3 or a 4. It's not working.
Soon in the game.
It's obvious that the biggest error is letting 2 G5 schools get in. SMU, in failing to do its job in completing the circle to make the ACC look bad, gets rewarded by being ranked higher than the ACC champion, which still somehow feels appropriate. But yes, 2 G5s. Yes, I know SMU is in the ACC. That's the point of the comment. The other thing I think that got missed isn't really so much the committee's fault. Obviously, we've talked about Penn State, but the whole reason Penn State is there, one could argue, isn't the committee. And you're going to like this, Jim. Follow me on this. I hinted at this air quotes conspiracy theory on the Honestly Speaking podcast. Jim, your Michigan Wolverines managed to intimidate your favorite colored-haired human being at Ohio State, Ryan Day, into losing a football game that everybody else on this panel, your Homer self included, thought that they shouldn't win, much to our joy. However, to the chagrin of the college football playoff, such that it is in this bracket, what it allowed to happen was Penn State being at that 6th spot. If Ohio State got to that 6th spot, would I be ecstatic about their path? Not really. But what it would at least do is put me in a position to get a one-loss team whose only loss was by a single point to the number 1 team in the nation, have an easy path to eventually possibly lead to a final, a national championship, where it's an Oregon-Ohio State rematch. Now, in no world do I really believe either Big Ten team will make that happen, as I believe these playoffs will also be known as the Janet Jackson halftime show. A lot of people are getting exposed, the Big Ten among them. Punchline's this: Ryan Day does his job. We're not complaining about Penn State the way that we are. Ergo, the entire thing is Ryan Day's fault. You are welcome, Jim.
The only flaw there is you would have already had your Oregon-Ohio State rematch.
What do you mean?
If they'd have beaten Michigan, they would have been in the championship game.
Big Ten title game.
Right. The Big Ten title game would have been Oregon-Ohio State.
Oh, so we could be set up
Ohio
for a
State
third
would have
rematch.
2 losses.
Yeah, because assuming Oregon wins the second time,
cool.
they probably end up
Ohio
in the
State
spot
with 2
that Penn
losses
State
is still at 6. Don't you agree?
Or Ohio State wins, and then Oregon's right there in that 5-6 realm. So either way,
yeah,
that title game sets this up a little better. Yeah, probably.
It's a better life. That's what
quack,
I'm getting.
Quack.
The punchline is, you're focused all on the wrong thing. The punchline is, it's all Ryan Day's fault.
I mean, I'm fine.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I'm fine putting the blame on the painted-haired bitch. That's fine.
There it is. Somebody, where is it? I got him to say it.
There it is.
You're gonna have to get Lou Holtz saying he's soft on the soundboard. I feel like I want to know what that.
EJ, your thoughts on the bracket on the server?
I mean, outside the issues with reseeding and based on the rules itself, they got the 12 teams correct here. I haven't
You're
seen
an idiot. You're just a raging idiot. You're even contradicting yourself from last fucking week. Good God.
Wait, hold on.
Whatever.
Wait, what are you talking about? Are you drunk right now, bro?
Bro, you're the one that said Bama should be in last week. Now suddenly the results of this week, Bama should be out. You're a tool.
Hey, is a hell of a drug.
No, I never said Bama should be in. I said Bama might get in.
Don't do math.
I mean, okay. Anyway,
okay. I'm just going to pass it to the rest of the panel, and they can remember what they.
Why don't we pass it back to EJ first?
Thank you. Well,
the only thing we're passing back to EJ is apparently a crack pipe.
That's okay with me. Anyway, no, but they got the 12 teams right. I do think though, if SMU did not come back in that game in the 4th quarter, they shoehorned Alabama in without question.
You're a fucking tool. I don't believe you.
I think they do. Yeah.
Get over it, Kyle. First off,
I can't get over you being wrong. It's 10 years.
well,
You haven't
it's
learned a
your
fucking
opinion,
thing I
bro.
taught you.
It's your motherfucking opinion. Let me have my motherfucking opinion too, also. Motherfucker, Jesus.
You can have it, but he can also say that you're wrong.
But Mike, let me finish what I'm fucking saying first. And
Yeah,
then
let him
opinion
finish
after.
his opinion
God
before you
damn
tell
it.
him he's wrong.
No, but I'm big. You damn right I'm big fucking man. I'm trying to fucking talk, nigga. Shit. Anyway, as I was saying, no, the 12 teams are right in my opinion. For the most part, I obviously I do think though we will see much sooner than we realize the reseeding thing come to focus. Don't be surprised if next year the reseeding will be a thing.
Yeah,
I know.
I think everything Sean said about the committee want to have some sort of control with future possible matchups in the quarterfinals and semifinals. Definitely played a part in how they want.
I think the only thing that stops it would be if we got great matchups at every stage.
Well, I also think
if
the other thing that stops it, I don't know what the contracts, what the verbiage in the contract is, because right now I think the 12-team format as it sits in front of us is like quote unquote ironclad again. We've seen things.
A lot of people signed off on this.
Yeah. We've seen things dramatically in very quick fashion over the last couple of years changing college football. Right. So you can take quote unquote ironclad for what it's worth. But the report today that EJ, I know you shared it to the group about the possibility of going to a 14-team playoff as early as 2026. My understanding was that this format was like set in stone, so to speak, for 2 years, and then they can make adjustments to it. So right. I wouldn't plan on any changes to the formatting for next year. Again, that's many months away. A lot of things can change in many months, but I wouldn't hold your breath on it.
Wouldn't you think though reseeding will only be a subtle change as opposed to like a drastic change?
Yeah, it would. And if there's a change that will be made before next year, I think that would be it.
Correct.
Right.
Because that's a very easy one. Like let's like be totally like forward with it. If the College Football Playoff Committee decided today to say that they're going to reseed that they've heard the feedback from everybody and we're going to reseed it, the only teams that are going to be mad about that is Penn State. You know what I mean? So and maybe, so that's really the big thing there.
Right.
It's an easy thing to do because the quarterfinals are bowl games. They're not games that are hosted somewhere. It's a lot quicker, easier, safer to be able to make that change than it is probably some of the other ones. But yeah, I don't know the legalities of it that they would have to approach. But again, money talks. So if there's money to be made by reseeding,
it's all about that. It's all about the money.
Well, and the money, I was going to say, like the idea of, and I think Jim, you and I talked about it in a phone call. The whole, how many conference championship hotels get canceled and how many national title game hotel because the team that they thought was going to. I think by locking in the path, it allows Penn State fans to shop for the game against Boise State and potentially against. Right. Like knowing where they are and who it would probably be against, you start to know like where to buy tickets and where to book your hotels and where to make your tailgate plans. And I think that's a big part of college football is the travel and the tailgate and all the money. And so if you reseed, which I think we can all agree makes better football,
correct,
and is more fair to the teams, putting their concussions and their lives and their money on the line. It may be unfair to all the other people that are getting paid and that are making the plans and doing those things. So I'm sure that was all weighed into this.
Well, let me ask you this, guys, and then would you guys want a 14-team playoff?
No.
This is already, and it might just be because it's new. It's very overwhelming. I think
it is overwhelming. Yes.
Like it's overwhelming. It's confusing. Alabama would be in. There's a lot of reasons why for now.
Teams that deserve it would be in there over the Americans representative.
If we saw reseeding and if we saw what I would say, like with that, where the cream can rise, we don't have the locked in top four.
Yeah.
Then I think the 14 might work. because you could reward like a top 2 with buys or whatever you want to do. But if you go to 14 in the current format, it's like, are you locking in 6 buys? Or are you keeping it at 4 and just adding an extra? Because there's going to be at 14, you're going to have a weird buy path.
They're going to do a play-in game for some.
like
I know it's strange to say.
Like 2
I know it's
games.
Right.
I don't know. I if it involves a play-in game and an extra week for like 2 teams, then I would say no. I don't think.
I don't think there's necessarily a play-in. There's necessarily you would lose the 3 and 4 bye week.
Right, I agree.
Because
they
like
would have games.
Division 1 AA, Division 2, those divisions already do a 14 team playoff. My college alma mater that I didn't graduate from, Kutztown, was the number 1 seed in one half of the Division 2 bracket.
And they got one of 2 buys, right?
They got one of 2 buys.
That's the only way it works.
Yeah,
so
them and Ferris State
okay.
got the buys in that one. So, and the end to the defense of possible upsets and things there. The number 4 seed on that side of the bracket, Slippery Rock, they won. It is a reseeded bracket. They went on. They beat Kutztown in Kutztown actually. In round 2, they're actually in the Final Four. So,
because I know it sounds strange that adding 2 more teams into the bracket would water down a sport that has 120 plus schools, but at the same time, it's as Sean said,
no one gives a shit about watering down. We live in a world where the March Madness exists.
Agreed, right? Exactly. It's too much already as is, which I agree.
We live in a 12-team bracket with Arizona State in it.
Right. I'm just saying to Sean's point that
that's already watered down.
It is a little overwhelming too, even the 12. But maybe but I think because of the fact that we're so used to 4.
Alabama would be one of the schools in the rankings there. Who would have been the other?
Either Miami or Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
It was
Miami, Ole Miss.
Miami.
Right.
Okay, that
you would have had 3 AC schools and what a crock. Listen, a minor correction. While your point is overall made about forecasting out ahead for games, Sean, I don't think Penn State fans would want to do that because I don't think they believe they're going to beat SMU next week. It's actually a big game. Anyways.
You know what? Let's just enjoy the 12 first, please. God.
Well, that would be SMU beating a Big Ten school. Kyle,
yes, the American making more noise.
Bang bang.
Mikey B, thoughts on the bracket?
Well, first off, I think there's a lot of complaining about reseeding when we haven't even seen a team get upset yet. Like if the teams that are hosting first round games do their jobs, there's nothing to reseed.
See your point.
1 versus 8, 4 versus 5, 3 versus 6, 2 versus 7. And then what are you going to tell me? Oh, okay, Notre Dame pulls an upset off of Georgia. They should play Oregon because they're the 7 and Oregon's the 1. You're telling me we're going to reseed the semis?
Yeah.
I think it's just the principle more than anything else. I see what you're saying there. It's just the principle.
Oh, so if the favorites,
if everybody holds serve,
if the higher ranked team wins, the bracket wouldn't need reseeded.
Correct.
I'm with you, Mike. I don't think it's as big of a problem as the 4 being the 4. I feel like that's my bigger problem.
Correct. I feel like we're nitpicking on they don't reseed. I think the problem here is that the 3 and the 4. Let's be very transparent.
The 1 and the 2.
Let's
pretty accurate.
Let's stop with the Oregon, Georgia. They should be 1 and 2. They're the Big Ten champion who's undefeated and an SEC champion who won a conference title game and beat Texas twice. The 1 and the 2 got it right.
Argue with you there, Mike. That's a good point.
We're complaining about the 3 and the 4, and the reality of the situation is this.
Not really, actually. But go ahead.
3's fine. Actually,
Mike.
No shot. There's no shot that there's anybody on this panel that thinks Boise State should be the number 3 team in the nation that isn't fucking me. There's not a soul.
I think you do. If your only
don't
loss,
smoke crack.
If your only loss is to the number 1 team in the country right now,
this is
points, I'm okay with it.
This is the goddamn problem with the whole process. Why does nobody talk about accomplishments in the fucking college football playoff? This is bullshit. We're focused on what people lost. Okay, listen, Boise State is in because they got handed that, all right? We left out a team that beat a conference champion. Something one of the teams up there can't say, right, SMU? And, oh, God, this is just so stupid.
Kyle, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, Kyle?
No, you can't, because you're going to say something else stupid.
No, I'm asking you a question. You're going to answer the question.
Christ.
If you had a chance,
I might if I want to, motherfucker. I'll do what I want.
Okay. Relax, buddy. I'll get a hug later on. If you right now, in your opinion, rank the 4 best teams right now in college football, how you would do it, regardless of
That's
Just
not
the
the
top
question.
4.
That's
Top
not the question in play. What Mikey has posited is that none of us have a problem. We have nothing to complain about. The real thing to complain about is, even though I talk about Dillon Gabriel being a flaw, they are an undefeated team.
Correct.
Their reward is at best, their next team to play is the number 9th seed. If Clemson wins, they should be forced to play Oregon. If SMU wins, they should be forced to play Oregon. If Indiana wins, they should be forced to play Oregon. I guess, again, I forget if they played on the schedule or not. Punchline's this. You deserve to get the easiest road if you are undefeated. That's just where I sit.
Right, that's where the reseed comes in, yeah.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. The point I made is we are jumping to the conclusion that we believe that a team that is the visitors next weekend
might be ranked 11
could win a game on the road and should play Oregon. If that's the case, fine. But I think there's other things that we need to address before we worry about potential upsets. And I think the problem here is the fact that they put the rankings out and you see Boise State at 10 and you see Arizona State at 13 and you're like, why are they 3 and 4?
Because the ACC got biased and Arizona State was not properly respected, but that's a separate sidebar.
To be fair, though,
I think the issue might
it's because they put terminology that said that you have to give it to conference champions. At the end of the day, the 12 teams, there should be 5 teams automatically in the bowl. The SEC champion, the Big 10 champion, the Big 12, the G5, and the Atlantic Coast Conference. Where they're at in that 12 depends on where they finish in the rankings. Not because Cam Scatterbo decided to bust up Iowa State. And the fact that Ashton Genty is probably going to break a rushing record, and the fact that he's the best running back in college football right now and has carried Boise State on his back gets them a 3 seed. In reality, they should probably be on the road in the first round playing Penn State or playing somebody else like that, and Texas, who has 2 losses, should have a bye. And
if we did it this way, the top 4, Penn State would have a bye.
Guess what? They lost. Well, they lose 2 games.
Penn State.
They did. They lost 2.
Yeah,
they lost 2 games.
Ohio State
they lost
and a
conference title game, and they lost to a conference title game to a team that's undefeated.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so they get a bye. Cool story. You're telling me right now, if I'm sitting here today, if you tell me the top 4 is Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Penn State in that order, fine. I get it. It's not. I get it. It's not cute. I get it. It's not good because shit teams play shit conference and out of conference schedules, and I understand that. I'm not saying it, but to be fair, that team did their job. They beat who they were supposed to beat.
So Mike, no,
EJ, I gotta land this. You can have it right back.
Go ahead.
And Mike, keep in mind, this isn't me going after you here, but you bringing up this point that it should be this way, and all that this way does is expose the very problem with the committee. We were told that strength of schedule was supposed to matter, and we have proof positive that it fucking did not. The only reason we had to replace the BSC was because they were getting it wrong, because teams would hide behind weak-ass schedules. See Miami, see Nebraska, see Florida State, if you want some examples historically, okay? I'm not even bringing Notre Dame into this because I'm not in the mood to deal with the whole debate and getting double-teamed by Notre Dame fans. I don't have to. There's plenty of other examples that are complete crap that the BSC left a team that belonged there at one because they were undefeated, and there were some other one-loss teams that all perked it out. They put the wrong one in. They got their entire ass kicked. We didn't want to see that anymore, so we went to the 4-team playoff. And number 4 was often crowbarred in because SEC teams are getting biased. Even though they're better, they had to often put in another SEC team, and maybe perhaps FSU getting crowbarred in, even though it was going to happen anyway, was the last straw for the fans. Maybe all of that. But now at this point, strength of schedule has been thrown out of the entire window. And listen, I'm full Brad Pitt Moneyball in this. What the fuck are we doing here? Okay? Like, this is the problem, such as it is. It's not so much that, well, Penn State's 4, they should get a bye. What we're exposing is strength of schedule in that model never mattered.
Using
Here's
Kyle's
the problem
point,
with strength of
Okay.
schedule for
Okay.
me is all the conferences have gotten bigger, right? We're all expanding these which is causing a major problem with this for me, because you have conferences like the Big Ten who have some good teams. You have the obviously the SEC with several good teams. So I'd say several great teams, and then some good teams, and then a couple not so good teams, right? When you add more teams in a season that's only 11, 12, 30, let's call it 12 games long, and then a conference title game, if you have more teams in your conference, you have years like Penn State did this year where you don't have to play all of the teams at the top.
And
right?
Indiana, to be fair.
Indiana too. Yeah,
And
but
SMU.
they're in a conference that
And Texas,
ranks
to
fairly
be fair.
high. Texas
And
is another.
Yeah.
Texas is, they're an ACC school, supposed to be a great conference, yet their schedule's not that strong. But we don't talk about it because they're in the ACC, and the ACC is always good, right? So,
SEC.
I'm sorry, SEC. I'm all kinds of messed up. I haven't even started drinking yet.
Imagine that.
But the it just creates a problem, and I think it's hard because some of that's beyond the school's control. In the conference scheduling and the cycling of the teams and the things like that. So what you're telling me is, if Alabama had a year where they had a great recruiting class, #1 quarterback in the country, beating teams pretty handedly, but they had a Texas schedule where they played less top teams. They didn't have a Georgia. They didn't have
How many losses
know,
do they have is the question first, Sean.
well, how many does Texas have?
Two.
Then 2.
Okay. Then they make the same spot. Then they still get in, maybe at 12, like we're arguing for now. But I find it interesting you make that point where Arizona State,
Texas is 3.
was part of a conference where their additions actually made the conference stronger, and they still won the dang conference, beating at least one team here, by the way, that's top 25 ranked, and another in Iowa State that was ranked throughout the year. And I don't remember offhand if Arizona State played Colorado. I don't think they did, but I know they have a better conference record than them. So we're going to crap on Arizona State when, by your very point, Sean,
Iowa State's not ranked now, though, right?
They're not ranked now, correct. They were until they lost in the conference championship.
Yeah, they were last week, right?
Correct. Which, the
Iowa
only
State,
crime
18.
Are they not the number 18 team in the
Yeah, they're
nation?
18.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
No, you're right. No, you're right.
they are
Yeah,
18.
right
I
there.
beg your pardon. So what I'm saying is we're crapping on Arizona State by the previous two people making comments. I think it was you, and I forget who the other person that
I made
crapped
a
on them
joke.
was.
I made a
You
joke.
did. But they beat 17 and 18 in this top 25. I can't necessarily say that for a lot of the people in this discussion, right?
I mean, I know you can't say it about Texas because they haven't beaten anybody in this.
For
stuff.
example,
It's true.
And listen, I'm pro being critical of Texas. Cool. That puts Alabama in because they beat the conference champion during the regular season. But nobody wants to talk about that.
but here's the thing.
Okay, but hold on.
Nobody wants to talk about
Here's the
that,
thing-
but we also
here's the thing
don't
about
want to talk about them getting boat raced by Oklahoma when they
No,
debut their
we
team
talk
they're in.
about it endlessly on this panel. We know
Listen,
about the point
we
I'm
did.
We're aware that
fighting with is the fact that EJ's lead earlier was, well, Boise State only lost to #1. A loss can propel you into the playoff. Granted, that's not what exactly happened because they would be in any way as a G5 team before you hit me with that, Mike, and I know it. But even if they were, let's see, what's the next highest G5 team? I'm looking here quickly. No,
Memphis.
I can't make the joke about SMU right now.
Memphis.
But
Yeah, Memphis is 25.
Okay.
Army's 22.
I was about to say Army's
Army.
22.
I'm sorry.
If Boise's in the top 20, which I feel confident they would be, they should be ranked to Illinois. I said what I said. They're still making the playoff. So really, it's quality losses from Indiana and Penn State to Ohio State. How quality a loss is that now? Am I right? Like what are we doing here? So I mean, that's what I'm getting at.
Like Kai, would you rank the 4 teams that have right now currently ranked here? Would you, based on your like accomplishments? Which I'm with you on that one. What would you accomplish?
Are there any teams that are out?
Is this 4 accurate in your opinion?
The top
The-
four?
The top four here
Okay,
on the screen
so
now.
and the other problem is too, because Notre Dame's situation is what it is, and they keep buying themselves into prominence, and they're not in a conference. And I don't mean that as a slight. They put themselves in a good position to have higher standards for academics and recruit well. Still, I'm not dissing it.
Mhm.
But I would make a very fine case to put them ahead of Penn State for
I agree.
G5 school on the schedule or not. See,
I
that's
agree.
a pro Notre Dame take. Where the fuck is Muleheisen? Anyways, so like, yeah, that's just one thing that jumps out to me there too. But that too was an artificial crowbar, you know.
Because
What-
where's Penn State's? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Where
Because
is their quality win?
where-
I asked that all
right.
season. You know,
They have quality losses, not quality wins. I would argue Ohio State by virtue of
They
your
they beat
standards.
Bowling.
deserve- No, I would argue by Kyle
That was
standards.
a good one.
By Kyle standards, Ohio State should be higher than Penn State. They beat Penn State, for crying out loud.
Right. But here's the
But
thing
they're
that
not
kind of gets lost. And I've seen this in arguments from Joel Klatt to Paul Feinbaum to this panel to other people on Twitter and all of this. Depending how you want to make the argument, people are putting they're either weighting the wins or they're weighting losses.
Right.
And the thing that needs to be discussed is both of those things make up where you end up.
correct.
Because yes, Alabama has a great win over the team that's now number 2.
Correct.
Alabama also has 2 losses to teams that are 6-6, including a very bad Oklahoma team and a questionable at best Vanderbilt team.
And Jim,
So, but right,
And one
but
of
they
those
got time
losses
to.
was 2 weeks ago.
Jim, and to your point, also to add on to that, it wasn't that they
Because that's
lost to
what we needed.
Oklahoma. It's the way they
Right,
lost.
they
He
scored-
just
they didn't
said
score.
that.
Like they got their asses kicked 2 weeks ago. Again, if Alabama lost to Oklahoma that way in week 2, they're probably in.
Oh, no, I don't agree with you. With
I
all
don't
due
think so.
respect, Jim, I hear your argument,
guys-
and it's a good one. But they were out for blood against the SEC, and part of this was we're sorry, ACC, for leaving out FSU last year.
I see. Here's
Fuck
the deal.
off, Bern. You know I'm right.
No, I think you're dead wrong. I think you're
Let-
dead wrong.
Well, then put your
But I'll let-
violin away and
let's-
talk
let's-
rather than
let's-
hide behind
hold on,
bullshit.
hold on.
I'm gonna let
Come
Jim.
on,
I'm gonna let Jim finish his point because I'm not gonna cut him off.
Let's flip the Oklahoma game, which was the second to last game of the year, with even the South Carolina win. Okay, you put
I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry.
with Alabama. If you take the Oklahoma win and put that up where they beat South Carolina and move the win over South Carolina to the second to last week of the year, because at that point, a South Carolina team that was surging, they are 15th in this ranking. They were probably, I don't know, 20th or something around when that win happens. You're telling me if Alabama has a ranked win the second to last week of the season as opposed to a boat racing to a now 6-6 Oklahoma team,
Okay.
and you're telling me that's not going to boost Alabama, you're lying to yourself.
I'm not, with all due respect. I've called out the committee regularly and called their bias out and done so correctly on the show. But now that it involves Alabama, people want to tell me I'm wrong. But let me ask Bern this question then, okay?
Sure.
Oklahoma's bad this year. Awesome. You're going to tell me you're confident that Clemson and SMU are going to beat them. That's a cool story, bro.
I'm going to tell you that they had an opportunity to control their own destiny and they blew it. Something that no one wants to sit here and say. It's
Oh,
all
wait, well,
they have
hold
it out
on.
for. No, stop.
All
stop.
I hear is crying about they can't make their
I let you
schedule,
talk.
right?
You wanted me to
That's
talk.
fair.
Here it is.
Okay,
Here
then
it
I'm
is.
going to retort and call out your bullshit too.
That's
Go.
fine. Feel free, but let me talk because you told me that you
Go.
wanted it. Here
Talk.
it is.
Motherfucker,
Here it is.
go.
Guess what? Score more than 3 points on the road at fucking Oklahoma. When you can't, you got nothing to bitch at. You got 3 losses.
Incorrect.
You controlled
Go.
your own. Stop. You controlled your own fucking destiny.
No.
And you chose. Yes, you did. Stop. When they fucking lost, they were in the playoffs. They didn't fucking show up. Stop making excuses for goddamn Alabama. If they beat a ranked team at the tail end of their schedule and not fucking Mercer, they control their own destiny. It's bullshit. It's bullshit that we're going to sit here and talk about how the SEC got to take their feelings hurt. We got blood for the SEC. No. They fucking had an opportunity to do their own goddamn job and they failed. They fucking failed. And rather than sitting here and being like, oh, man, we can't believe that SMU can win a football game. If SMU beats Penn State, then what are you going to say?
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
That actually makes the point we've been talking about all year about the Big Ten being a little bit
But
blown
we're
up.
also going to make the point that SMU deserved to be there and fucking Alabama didn't.
But here's the thing, Mike, And you were one of the guys that came at me with this, and you can't turn around and talk to me about controlled fucking destiny when you were crying everywhere about, well, they don't get to make their rule. Neither does the SEC. And
But
Bama
you had a
had
shot.
a harder
You had a shot
schedule,
to not play
and they
Mercer.
had a tougher road, period. They
Mercer,
had some low
South
points
Florida,
because
Western
they had
Kentucky.
to. You're wrong. You're contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not.
Acknowledge you certainly are.
No,
they
I'm
can't
not.
control their schedule, as you stated.
Mercer,
So by logic,
Western
they
Kentucky.
can't control their destiny. Period. There's no way
Mercer.
around it. You're double talking.
Mercer, Western Kentucky, Wisconsin.
You're still
South
double
Florida.
talking. They're still the best conference that they have to go through, and they can't assign their schedule. They had a conference
And they lost to
champion in it.
fucking Vanderbilt, and they lost to
Who was a
Oklahoma.
ranked team? Do we got to bring that up?
I do wonder if Alabama lost Oklahoma in a closer game.
No, it wouldn't, because they're 6-6, right?
I think no. For me, at some point was more so the way they lost Oklahoma. It's a bad loss, performance-wise.
The way you keep
lose to
repeating
them
that
on
statement
September
isn't great
7th.
optics, EJ.
Am I the only one who has?
I mean,
a problem?
really, yeah. Sorry,
Am I the only one that has a problem with? I feel like at times, Kyle. I feel like at times it's convenient for you to and I hear it with them because you don't argue with me that much. I don't get as into the college football arguments because I'm busy on Saturdays. So, but it seems convenient sometimes for you and for other guys. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Like you just said it. They were a ranked team, right? They were. They're not, right? Navy was a ranked team.
We keep talking.
A&M was a ranked team.
All right, well, go ahead. I'll let you
Right.
finish.
So my point is like was a ranked team and is a ranked team seems to be like, you can't use it one way and not the other. Like you can't be like, well, we played Vanderbilt. They were a ranked team. Like they're not. Vanderbilt's not that good. I understand they're better than people think they are, and I understand that.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Don't.
Absolutely.
You're kind of construing it a little different than I mean it. So let me clarify with this.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not here to say that Vanderbilt's a powerhouse, and I'm not going to make a Northern Illinois joke, settle down, but they're sure as hell not some of the teams on SMU's schedule, on Clemson's schedule. And the reason why I bring them specifically up is because those resumes were compared at some point. And the way that the actual committee looks at it is they take a series of teams together. And at some point, that committee, as the only one of the few teams that still had their destiny on the line without a conference championship, was Alabama, Clemson, and SMU. And so, Mike, again, I'm not here to say that Oklahoma shouldn't be a factor. I think it's overweighed. And the reason why I say that is at some point, this committee, who told me that strength of schedule was supposed to matter, compared these teams directly and told me it was all bullshit that they told me strength of schedule mattered. That's it. That's where it begins and ends. Anything else is just window dressing.
SMU's 2 losses were to the 17th and 16th team in the country. Alabama lost to 2 unranked teams.
Like strength of schedule is an argument. Strength of schedule is not the argument.
Well, and then so they're lying to us, Jim, because that's what I was told this was supposed to repair, and it's not. And all we've created,
who told you that?
We've created now is a culture where teams are going to cancel good regular season games to bring in the Mercers and the Western Kentuckys that Mike is shitting all over, and frankly, rightly so. I'm not for the SEC playing week out of conference schedules. What should be happening is that Alabama gets in, the ACC realize they suck, they start scheduling SEC teams in their non-conference, beat somebody directly, which in Clemson's fairness, they tried to do with Georgia and it completely fucking backfired. I want more games like that out there. Instead, you guys want, or I shouldn't say you guys, people who are defending and crapping on Alabama are asking for the easy way out and keep the week scheduled because it will benefit you. And we're right back to where we started, what we were trying to solve for in the BSC. And I'm apparently the only person who gives a flying fuck about any of that.
No, you're not. And the thing is that quality wins and strength of schedule, like they're important. But like, again, I've talked about it before. We're not scheduling these 1 year out. Notre Dame and these other teams, they don't get the opportunity to be like, okay, well, next year I'd like to play that. You can't do that. So you schedule them a few years out. Well, in a couple of years, the teams don't earn as good or as bad. Not to mention a team like Boise State or like SMU, there's so many games they have to play, right? And you're right to say Alabama doesn't have to schedule, or like they should schedule weaker teams outside of probably if the AC or the SEC is as strong as it is, you don't want to schedule strong games outside of it because you're going to beat yourself up later. But the trouble is, if you're going to be one of the powerhouse teams that makes the SEC what you say the SEC is, the Georgias, the Alabamas, I'll lump Texas in here just for fun. If you're going to be one of the top tier teams in the SEC, and you're going to play a good, let's say Vanderbilt team,
a better team. Let's not get out of control. Yeah.
But, on a tier schedule for an Alabama to a Vanderbilt, there should be a pretty big gap there. And so if you're not going to schedule a strong out-of-conference schedule, then you need to take care of your business in the conference. And if you don't, and you maybe you get away with losing to a Georgia, maybe you get away with losing to a Texas, you're not going to get away with losing to someone that should be much lower than you in your conference if you're not going to have like a weighted thing the other way. And I understand there are situations like you're saying, but SMU would be one where I would be like, well, the opportunities they had to play, good teams. I think they played well against enough of them. They lost to 2 ranked teams now, but I think SMU made their point with the schedule they had in front of them. I think Notre Dame made their point with the schedule they had in front of them.
Oh, boy.
And I guess Penn State did. I nothing flashy, but your schedule's in front of you. You got to win them, man.
I'm sorry. That's just fundamentally flawed. I'm not fighting this anymore. Just I can't. I'm shaking by the conflict of logic I'm hearing there, man. With respect, I can't sign off on anything.
But again, here's the deal. So we're talking about Alabama's hard schedule. Let's take a team in their conference, Texas. Now, Texas had a game week 2 against Michigan. Who would have, nobody could have foreseen. You can grunt the fuck all you want under me.
Well, no, the reason why I'm grunting is I've been critical of Texas too. Now I'm a Texas advocate. This isn't what I'm talking about.
What's the phrase you say? Let me land the plane before you start bitching.
Fine.
So Texas had an out-in-conference game against, at the time, number 10 Michigan. Who could have foreseen that Jim Harbaugh leaves to the NFL? The Michigan roster's ransacked. Michigan is not the team that it was expected to be. Okay, that ended up not being a great win. Their conference schedule, again, they can't control it, but their conference schedule had literally one hard game. Georgia, they lost. They lost it again. Alabama, again, they can't control their conference schedule. They ended up having Tennessee. They ended up having Georgia. They ended up having a win over, a South Carolina team that wasn't as good when they played them, whatever. So they can't control those games, but they did control the out of conference games. I'm not going to bring the names up because I don't want to keep pounding that point. But their out of conference was weaker as the 4 games as a whole. Even any single game of their out of conference is weaker than what Texas looked like when we formulated and talked about things 4 months ago before the season started, because Texas is out of conference, had one good game on the schedule, right? Like that was the thing. So even within out of conference versus in conference in the SEC, there's things that you can't control. So Texas rolls through. They end up number 3. Do I think they're too high? I do. Alabama, a victim of also Nick Saban retiring, new head coach, hard schedule, but they are a victim of the fact that they lost 2 games, one of them being 2 weeks ago. Strength of schedule considered, wins and losses considered, when losses happen also considered, because Notre Dame had the I'll declare it, worst loss of any top 25 team right now this season. Hands down, worst loss. Notre Dame benefited from the fact that happened in week 2. If that happens on the first Saturday of November, Notre Dame's out. They're out.
I'm not as convinced, but go ahead.
Spots in the AP, and again, I guess the AP is different than the College Football Playoff Committee. I get that. 13 spots. They're not recovering from that with their schedule they had this year.
Because even if they're number 2,
which ended up being weaker than it looked like, when we sat and put the wraps on last season. And even when we started this season, like Florida State was the key matchup, right? We talked about that in our preseason. That was the marquee game for Notre Dame. That was going to be the one that if you get to the first Saturday in November in South Bend, you're going to have defending ACC champion coming to town. That's the one. That's the game that is going to make or break this schedule.
How that play out?
How fucking wrong were we? You know what I mean? Like, so like that, like, but again, like, and had Notre Dame lost to Florida State the first Saturday in November, they'd be out. Because you're like, so like,
I don't think so, Jim. I really don't.
They are.
I mean, well, okay. Let me adjust this. If you're saying they lost to Florida State instead of beating, what was it? Texas Tech? No, Texas A&M.
A&M.
Yeah, that's right. If you replace their one good, of course, if you replace their one good feat with something that's completely ass, they're worse. What I mean to say is, let's say they played NIU 2 weeks, or the penultimate game is NIU and they lost that one. Jim, I still think they make the playoffs.
I do not.
And I'm going to go full Joe Klatt, and rightly so, because at least at some point they played somebody that's tough and won. More than we can say for a lot of the Big Ten and a lot of the ACC. Accuse me of whatever you want, gentlemen. I'm going to remain consistent because having an accomplishment should matter.
That part I agree with Kyle on, because if what the loss to NIU did for Notre Dame, though, was they lowered their margin of error the rest of the year, which they accomplished. They won the rest of their games. Had they lost a second game this year, they might have been out of the playoff themselves.
If they
would have lost a second game, they would have been dead.
Right. That's
if they lose to NIU the second week of November, if you flip the Army and the Notre Dame game, that team crashes from number 2 overall to probably like 12 at best.
So here's the deal: when Alabama lost,
someone there.
So when Alabama lost to Oklahoma, who was, I think, 5-5 at that point, obviously not ranked. Alabama went into that game ranked number 7. They fell 6 spots to number 13. Obviously, as we can see, they did not recover. They're not in the college football playoff. Northern Illinois, a G5 MAC school, 7-5 on the season. If Notre Dame loses to NIU in November, I think the plummet first off is going to be worse than 6, because Notre Dame doesn't have a win. They even if they have the win over, at the time, 10th ranked Texas A&M, but I think in November they had lost to South Carolina, so they were in the mid-teens. Like Alabama, they had the win over the number 1 team in the country at the time, still in the top 6, whatever Georgia was. Like Notre Dame's best win, I don't think would have been, and this is me bashing my own team, would have, I think, a 6-spot fall by Alabama, I think would have been 8 or 9 spots for Notre Dame. And I don't think they could have recovered either. Again, the timing of it. But
well, and to your point, the only reason why I think Notre Dame can't is because they don't have the conference championship to help bail themselves out. That's a big part of it too.
Right.
In defensive, and so maybe I have a blind spot to that in my analysis, and I'm not accounting for the fact that if they do so that late, they don't really have a good opportunity to save themselves with a conference championship. They would need help. A lot of people would have to blunder. And in Clemson's defense, you would be on here screaming, fuck Dabo to the ends of the earth, with the fact they won on a 56-yard field goal, because a 4-loss Clemson team might get ranked behind Notre Dame in that instance.
So
that's possible. Oh, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a lot of teams in conferences, Kyle, that would miss it, would not get a conference if they had that late loss. It's rare that a team gets that.
I mean, Bama didn't,
and then gets a conference title game. You'd have to be pretty much undefeated in the conference to have that opportunity.
So let me punchline this then. Arizona State, we all kind of, it's hard for us to account for the Big 12, but the fact that they had both BYU and Iowa State, as by the way, a team that was picked to be the second worst in the conference. We're not talking enough about that. Right. we've made the point on this show how little Ohio State fell after falling, with all due respect, to an otherwise disappointing Michigan team, Jim.
Oh yeah, they should have fell further.
I don't think they fell far enough either.
Okay.
But I'll agree with you there.
Yeah. So with that all in mind, like, we really should be also arguing for Arizona State to be uplifted as part of my argument, right? Because they played a conference champion that was ranked higher, did so convincingly. One of few convincing wins on the dang weekend.
They boat raced them.
And still they're only 12. So I think there's part of that too. And again, you want to call it an ACC bias on my part, cool. I'll maintain my bias against them because they fucking suck. Okay? An American team did what it did. We don't have to talk about this again. We don't have to bring up your Notre Dame team out loud saying they're a member of the conference and dominating them again as we have in the past. Everybody says that Patrick LaVon Mahomes II he can't get away with this, but the ACC also continues to, and that's why I appreciated the reference that Byrne made earlier to the Chiefs as the ACC champion, right? There are some similar things there. The only difference is, like I said, the Broncos and the Chargers will belong in the playoffs if they make it.
So really, I think lost in all the sauce. The way to quote unquote fix the format, as it were, is reseed. Some of us feel stronger about reseeding than others, but really the one of the big things is the automatic buys, which again, those are two things that I think the majority of us had talked about in the preseason. Mike.
Oh yeah.
Easy way to fix this. Stop fucking preseason ranking teams.
Well,
because it's hard for teams to free fall. Looking at you, Ohio State. Looking at you, Penn State. Looking at you, Utah. Looking at
I would
you,
argue even
Clemson.
Miami.
Looking at you, Miami.
Yeah, I think there were points where they could have fallen way out of the picture.
But the problem is their losses as late as they were, with other teams losing in front of them, they got up to 6. Let's not rank a single team in college football until the week before the college football playoffs.
Dude,
because
I've been on that bus since longer than we've been in.
Because then you take the 25 best teams and you go, all right, boys, these are the teams that are going to be on that sheet on Tuesday night. We're going to rank them, and then you guys got to fucking figure it out from there. Because at that point, you can then take strength of schedule. You then can take what teams do in the conference, looking at you, Alabama, looking at you, Georgia, looking at you, Texas, and you can say, okay,
it's the SEC. They only have the best conference. Jesus Christ, that's what I don't like about it, Bern.
I'm giving you a fucking compliment here.
Yeah, he's
okay. Hey, that's my fault if I misunderstood. My bad. I'm
because
sorry.
You're going to look at their strength of schedule because they will have already played conference games, and their win over
I hear
Texas A&M on the road, or their win on the road at a ranked South Carolina, or what would be a top 25 ranked South Carolina team when you put out that first bracket, would look better than, oh, look, Penn State beat 4-3 Georgia Tech on the road. Who gives a shit that they beat Georgia Tech? They're 4-3. Cool. Their strength of schedule is 37th. So we put them at 25 because cool. They have one loss. They lost to Ohio State on the road in the Horseshoe. They're a top 10 team, but they have no other quality win. So now they have to find a way to make it to the conference title game to put themselves in the conversation. Yeah. It's too hard for some of these teams to fall out of the top 25 when they're gifted it in the preseason. That's all I'm saying.
I think the compromise. I have one quick point. The compromise there, I think, I don't think anyone on the playoff committee or anyone in NCAA is going to wait that long. No. But we have a point in the season where we start and we used it on our show when they start the selection rankings.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks to go. I feel like that would be the compromise. Like that's like when that comes out, that would be the first point where here's your ranked teams. Now let's play it out. And I feel like that would be an easier step, but that would be better than what it is now. I completely agree that the early season rankings, and does Notre Dame benefit from that a lot of years? Yeah. does
So
Penn
does
State and
Texas.
some of these historic? Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Some of
Before
these
Texas was
historical
back, they'd
games.
be there every year, right, Sean?
Well, Michigan, it took them several weeks for people to realize, like, oh wow, this team's awful. Like, you know what I mean? And even Florida State, like, I mean, it happened a little quicker because Florida State lost to some real.
I think that happened pretty quick, actually.
It happened. I mean,
that's what it
but the initial
Yeah,
loss
week
didn't
zero.
kill them. Obviously, the initial loss didn't kill them because it was like, well, these are two good teams, and then it was like, well, okay, well, now they're in a bit of a funk, and then it was no, this team's really
It sucked.
shitty.
All right, to try and speed.
But yeah, I'll let you guys.
I need the quick one to Mike here. Which do you think is harder, for teams to fall out or for teams to climb up? That would be my argument. But we're in the same spirit. You know what I'm saying?
mean, I would say at this
Fine.
point, it feels like it's harder for teams to fall out.
Okay.
Personally, but I mean that's something that we can discuss at a later date because I don't want to divert this anymore.
But they're both important.
Just
is what
to
I'm saying.
the preseason ranking point. Okay, these are some of the spots of where teams were: Ohio State 2, Notre Dame 7, Penn State 8, Michigan 9, Florida State 10, Missouri 11, Utah 12, LSU 13, Oklahoma 16, Oklahoma State 17, Kansas State 18, Miami came in at 19, Texas A&M 20, Arizona 21, Kansas 22, USC 23, NC State 24, and Iowa 25.
NC State, what a
Like, holy hell! Look, from that to where we are, holy hell! Like,
5-7 Kansas opened the season ranked number 22 in the nation.
Boise State was just outside, SMU just outside, Iowa State just outside, Liberty was just outside, Nebraska, Wisconsin, App State, Kentucky, Auburn, Colorado were all just outside. They were
question to the panel: can we just call the NCAA and say, can we get votes in this? Because when you somehow have 5-7 Arizona or 4-8 Arizona and 5-7 Kansas, both in your preseason top 25, that means to tell me that you know absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you're guessing.
Because here's the problem with preseason rankings. And historically, they've been based on what the team did last year and what we perceive they're going to do this year. Now trying to figure that out with the transfer portal is absolutely fucking asinine, right?
That's what killed Arizona, for example.
Yeah, and because I mean, look, last year Notre Dame went out, they got Sam Hartman. He was supposed to be the savior, right? That didn't work out so well, now did it? This year they go out and get Riley Leonard. Started off not that great.
Not great, Bob.
Again, leads a game-winning drive at Texas A&M, does nothing in week 2 against Northern Illinois, struggles. He doesn't throw a touchdown pass until I think it was week 5. Now the Notre Dame offense has gotten on track. Cool. But those are the things that nobody can predict what is going to happen when you have a guy that was recruited to play at Duke and now he's playing at Notre Dame, a guy that was recruited to play at Northern Washington and now he's at Ohio State. What? You're trying to tell me you can figure out what that guy's going to do? You can't. So yeah, I've always been on board with getting rid of preseason rankings, but
you always can't predict a quarterback to completely tank like Kansas is doing.
It will never happen. It will never happen.
All right.
It was week 4.
Well, yeah, the preseason rankings are never going away. That's a no shit Sherlock situation. But real quick, we're looking at the first round matchups. And then because I do want to move on to other things in college football, and then of course the NFL, and we're already at an hour and a half.
Wow,
we
fucked up.
Anyway, when you're having fun.
So looking at the first round matchups, Mike, I'll go Mike, EJ, Kyle, Sean, and then myself. Just looking at these, interpret it how you want, but most intriguing, most prime for upset, however you view upset, whatever. What game are you most looking forward to next week? We'll obviously make the predictions next week, but what are you most looking forward to next week?
Who's first? Me?
Mike.
I'm just looking at something real quick before I get my formal suggestion out of the way. Night game at Notre Dame. Intriguing. I heard a lot of talk from the Indiana head coach where he, gave Marcus Freeman's boys a little bit of bulletin board material calling out the fact that they lost to NIU. Well, Kurt, I'm going to tell you this much. Be careful what you wish for, because now you have to go write that fucking check and your ass has got to go cash it. So you better find a way to leave South Bend with a win, or you're going to look real dumb for that comment that you made on the college football bracket show, because you basically called that team out and said that you should be having the home game instead of them. Well, here's your chance to shut them up.
There you go.
Better fucking do it.
EJ, most intriguing next week.
Stuff, because it's that even between the battle of Indiana and then of course Tennessee and Ohio State, man. Both those games I'm fired up for.
All right, student of the game.
It's not tough because Notre Dame's going to fucking murder Indiana, and I'm going to be cheering for the Irish so hard that Jim won't know what happened to him. He'll feel the hardness of my cheers from a distance away, giggity, but that's not even where I'm going. And maybe some of my bias involving the black and gold banneret are coming out in spades here. I think Josh Heupel makes Jim happy in just another way that Notre Dame's about to. By beating Ohio State. And then Dylan Gabriel does battle against his former coach. And the only reason why he doesn't do battle against his former coach is because Scott Frost had to fuck up the rotation and bring Mackenzie Milton to town. Because back when Mackenzie Milton was hurt, you better bet your entire ass he was coaching up Dylan Gabriel as well. That's okay. I'll take the one I got, Heupel versus Gabriel in the quarterfinal. And you better bet your entire ass that is the one I'm looking forward to, and I'll certainly write something about it. I feel like compelled that I'd have to on the black and gold banneret.com.
All right, Sean, what is the most intriguing matchup of round one?
I mean, I have a bit of a bias, so obviously the night game at South Bend is very exciting for me. The fact that it's a battle for Indiana with bulletin board material was all things I was going to point out. So I'll step aside as someone who's made Nittany Lion getting run over bumper stickers, as I alluded to last week. I think the fact that an SMU team who has all of these, well, maybe they shouldn't have been ahead of Alabama. Maybe they are part of a weak conference. Maybe they weren't the strongest team to get in. Has a chance to prove themselves against a team that I hate. I am all for it. I like to bet on teams with something to prove. I like to bet on teams with chips on their shoulder. I think SMU has both, and I think Penn State's incredibly overrated. So I think that is, if I was going to pick the prime opportunity for an upset, obviously Clemson, Texas is there. Clemson coming off a big win, Texas somewhat unproven, so like it's there. I think SMU is the prime candidate to pull off the upset and would set up I don't know about an intriguing matchup, but a matchup between SMU and Boise State in the quarterfinal. But it does put one of those two teams into the semis and proves my point about reseeding. So I love everything about it.
In other news, I'm noticing that I'm seeing a purchaser of those bumper stickers at 3 times the price per unit. And oh, never mind. It's Mule Heisen trolling his wife. Carry on.
There you go.
I'm curious to see how James Franklin can Franklin at home. But I think obviously besides the Notre Dame home game and playing on a Friday, which is weird, Fridays in Notre Dame Stadium just doesn't feel right. But I think the most intriguing is the Ohio State Tennessee matchup, because you have an Ohio State fan base that has been stewing over their most embarrassing loss, at least in recent memory, in that series against Michigan, and a fan base that was ready to like fire Ryan Day that night. And now you have the opportunity, if you're Ohio State, and especially that painted hair bitch Ryan Day, to flip the script, right? Like you have 4 games in front of you where you can say that was a fluke. I understand. I fucked up. We can worry about Michigan next November, but I just won a national championship, right? Like that's his task. However, if that game next Saturday starts with Tennessee getting the ball, scoring, and Ohio State going, let's say, 3 and out, that home game for Ohio State becomes a hell game for Ohio State, because that crowd is going to turn on that team and on that coaching staff.
Incredible point.
And then Ryan Day.
that to me is the most intriguing, because like I don't think, even as frustrated as Penn State is, because I think Franklin and Penn State are in a similar spot to what the crowd can do if SMU can get a lead. but that Ohio State fan base is ready. Like, it doesn't even matter because the question is always, well, who do you get? Ohio State fans, they do not care.
I think Happy Valley just goes silent. I
They'll
think
go
if SMU
silent. Ohio
comes out
State fans
early-
will turn, and that
Yeah.
to me is the intriguing part. But that is that.
We
All right,
could see them both getting fired. I'll just throw that out there. Go ahead.
they
Jim.
certainly could, but Day is definitely on the
Hotter
the
seat.
hottest of
And then
seats.
Brian Kelly can join the family.
Family.
There you go. We'll talk about that in the offseason.
Kyle's point today he's on the podcast. It's title Buster Day. That's simple.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.